Hey there. Tonight, we're going back, way back, to 218 BCE. You're standing in the pre-dawn darkness of New Carthage, modern-day Spain, and you can hear them breathing. 37 war elephants. Your elephants. You've trained them, fed them, whispered to them in the language only mahouts understand. The largest weighs 9,000 pounds. The smallest could still crush a horse with one step. Tonight, you'll learn what history books skip over. Not the glory of Hannibal's strategy, not the romance of crossing the Alps. No, you'll discover the brutal, forgotten truth about what really happened to these magnificent creatures. The cold that froze their tears, the rocks that shredded their feet, the terror in their eyes when they saw snow for the first time. Welcome, friend. I'm glad you're here. Before we begin this journey together, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is for you. Are you in bed already? On a long drive? Just existing at 3 a.m. So, dim the lights, get comfortable, pull those blankets up, because tonight you become the mahout, the elephant keeper, and you'll experience every agonizing mile of the most disastrous animal expedition in ancient warfare. Let's go back, together. You wake before dawn in the stables of New Carthage. The smell hits you first. Elephant dung, hay, and the musky scent of 37 North African war elephants breathing in the darkness. You've been their keeper for 8 years now, ever since you were purchased as a boy from a Numidian village. Your elephant, Surus, the only Syrian elephant in Hannibal's entire army, stirs as you approach. He's partially blind in his right eye, but he knows your footsteps. The other mahouts are already moving through the pre-dawn routine. You can hear them murmuring to their beasts in Punic, Numidian, and broken Latin. Each elephant consumes 300 pounds of food daily. Each needs grooming, foot care, and constant reassurance. These aren't domestic creatures. They're barely controlled chaos wrapped in leather skin. General Hannibal Barca himself arrives as the sun breaks the horizon. He's 39 years old, scarred from campaigns in Iberia, with an intensity in his eyes that makes even veterans nervous. He walks directly to Surus, your elephant, and places his palm flat against the rough skin. "This one," he says in Punic, his voice carrying. "This one will carry our fortunes." You swallow hard. Hannibal has just marked your elephant, and you, for something unprecedented. The entire camp knows the rumor. You're marching north, toward Rome itself. Through mountains no army has ever crossed with elephants. The march begins 3 days later. You're positioned in the middle of Hannibal's column, 90,000 infantry, 12,000 cavalry, and your 37 elephants stretched along 2 miles of dusty Iberian road. The elephants walk in single file, each separated by 50 paces to prevent crowding. Surus leads the elephant division, which means you walk at the front, exposed to everything first. The infantry soldiers keep their distance. They're mostly Iberians, Gauls, and Libyans, hardened fighters who've nevertheless never worked this close to elephants. Yesterday, one of the African elephants panicked at a snake and trampled 2 supply carts. The men gave the beasts even wider berth after that. You can see it in their eyes. They respect the elephants' power, but don't trust them. By noon, the heat becomes oppressive. Elephants are equipped for this. They evolved in hot climates. But Surus keeps trying to veer toward any water source. You guide him back with firm pressure behind his ear, constantly in the low, rhythmic tone that keeps him focused. Your water skin empties by mid-afternoon. An officer rides past, confirming what everyone already knows. You're rationing water now. The wells ahead have been poisoned by Roman cavalry scouts. That night, you make camp near a dried riverbed. The elephants are restless and pulling at their stakes. They can smell water somewhere. maybe underground, maybe miles away. You sleep with one hand touching Surus's foreleg, feeling every muscle twitch. He's your responsibility. If he panics and kills someone, the army will put him down, and probably you too. The Pyrenees Mountains appear on the horizon after 12 days of marching. You've never seen mountains before, not like this. Back in Numidia, the land was flat except for occasional rocky hills. These peaks rise like jagged teeth against the sky, still weeks away, but already dominating everything. The local tribes watch from hilltops. Some have treaties with Carthage, others send scouts to count your numbers. One morning, you find an Iberian spear planted in the ground 50 paces from camp. A warning. Hannibal pays off some tribes, fights others in quick, brutal skirmishes. The elephants don't participate in these fights. They're being preserved for something bigger. Surus develops a limp on his rear left foot. You discover a stone bruise after evening inspection, a purple-black spot the size of your palm on his foot pad. For an elephant, this is potentially fatal. Infection could spread up the leg, and then you'd have to request his execution before the poison reaches his heart. You spend 3 hours that night applying a poultice of vinegar, honey, and crushed herbs that the chief veterinarian provided. Surus grumbles but allows the treatment. The other mahouts watch your work. There's an unstated hierarchy among you. The mahout whose elephant performs best gains status, receives better rations, gets first choice of camping spots. You're young, the youngest by far, but Surus being the general's chosen mount gives you unexpected influence. An older mahout, Carthalo, approaches with advice about foot care. His elephant, Achates, is one of the largest Africans. The mountains will be worse, he warns in accented Punic. Much worse than stones. You enter the Pyrenees after 3 more days. The path narrows immediately. Steep slopes on both sides, barely wide enough for an elephant to pass. The army stretches into a thin, vulnerable line. This is when they attack. The mountain tribes hit at noon when the sun makes everyone drowsy and the path rounds a blind corner. Rocks rain down first, not thrown by hand, but rolled from above by dozens of tribesmen. One boulder, massive as a grain cart, crashes into the column behind you. You hear screaming. The infantry breaks formation, shields raised uselessly against gravity. Surus panics. Every instinct tells him to run, but there's nowhere to go. Cliff face on the left, sheer drop on the right. Soldiers front and back. He rears up, trumpeting a sound that echoes off the mountains like thunder. You grab his ear, pull yourself up onto his neck, and do the only thing that might work. You sing. It's a Numidian child song about rain and growing grain, utterly inappropriate for combat. But your mother sang it when you were frightened, and you've sung it to Surus since he was a calf. His ears rotate toward your voice. His feet plant. He doesn't bolt. Behind you, it's chaos. 3 elephants do panic, crushing soldiers in their terror. One elephant loses footing on the narrow path and falls. A horrifying, slow-motion disaster, as 9,000 pounds of animal topples over the cliff edge. You hear it hit the rocks below, a sound you'll remember forever. The mahout jumps at the last second, catches a rock outcrop, survives. His elephant doesn't. Hannibal's cavalry eventually drives the tribesmen off, but the damage is done. First elephant lost. 1 day into the mountains. You cross the Pyrenees summit after 8 nightmare days. 8 days of narrow paths, altitude sickness, and constant tribal harassment. The army has lost 7,000 infantry, 200 cavalry, and 3 more elephants. 33 elephants remain. You count them every night now, compulsively, like a miser counting coins he knows he's losing. Surus's foot has healed, but he's changed. Elephants remember trauma differently than humans. Deeper, more permanent. He startles at shadows now, refuses to walk near cliff edges, trumpets warnings at birds. The other elephants are the same. The veterans among the mahouts say this is normal, that war elephants are always half mad. You're not sure that's comforting. The descent into Gaul feels like relief at first. The paths widen, the air warms slightly, and the local tribes are friendlier. Some even join Hannibal's army. You reach the Rhone River on an autumn day, when the leaves are changing colours you've never seen before. Gold, red, orange. Nothing in North Africa prepared you for seasons like this. But the Rhone presents a new problem. It's 300 yards wide, flowing fast with snowmelt, and elephants can't swim that distance. The army engineers have been working on rafts, massive platforms of logs lashed together, covered with dirt to fool the elephants into thinking it's solid ground. You watch them work and feel sick. Surus weighs more than 9,000 pounds. That raft is wood and rope and hope. Hannibal summons all the mahouts for instructions. "We cross tomorrow at dawn," he announces. "The Romans have cavalry on the far bank. We need the elephants across first. They'll break the Roman line before they can form up." His eyes find yours. You'll go first. Surus leads. Dawn comes too quickly. The raft bobs in the shallows, tethered by 3 ropes to trees on the bank. It's covered in a foot of dirt and leaves, with small shrubs planted in the surface to make it look like an extension of the riverbank. Theoretically brilliant. In practice, you're being asked to trick a creature that can smell water from miles away. You lead Suris toward the raft slowly, speaking constantly in that low, rhythmic Numidian cadence. He stops at the dirt transition, trunk extended, testing. He knows. Of course he knows. But he trusts you, or at least, his training overrides his fear. His first step onto the raft tilts it slightly. The engineers hold their breath. So do you. 1 step, 2, 3. His full weight is on the raft now. The logs groan but hold. You're walking backward, maintaining eye contact, one hand raised in the gesture that means follow. Behind you, 30 oarsmen grip their oars, ready to row the moment the ropes are released. Behind Surus, 4 more elephants wait in line, watching their leader. The ropes release. The raft jerks into the current. Surus trumpets in alarm, finally understanding the deception. The raft tilts dangerously as his weight shifts. You stumble, catch yourself on his trunk. "Easy," you whisper, though your heart is trying to escape your chest. "Easy, brother. Just stand. Just stand still." The far bank seems impossibly distant. The current pushes you downstream, even as the oarsmen row furiously. You can see Roman cavalry forming up on the opposite shore, their horses nervous at the sight of approaching elephants. This is taking too long. You're exposed, floating in the middle of a river with nowhere to hide. Halfway across, everything goes wrong. An elephant on the second raft panics. You hear it, trumpeting behind you. Hear the mahout screaming commands. Hear the splash as 9,000 pounds of terrified animal decides it would rather risk drowning than stay on a floating wooden platform. Surus hears it too. His head swings around, and the raft tilts violently to the right. 2 oarsmen lose their oars. One falls into the river, armor pulling him down like an anchor. You don't see if anyone pulls him out. You're too busy throwing your entire body weight against Surus's left side, using every ounce of training to redirect his attention back to you. "Look at me," you shout in Numidian, abandoning the calm tones. Sometimes panic requires panic in response. "Eyes here, now!" You slap his trunk, not hard, but sharp enough to sting, shocking him into focus. It's a training technique from when he was young, something you haven't used in years. It works. His eyes find yours. The elephant in the water is swimming now, trunk raised like a snorkel, mahout clinging to his back and praying. The current is pulling them downstream, away from the crossing point. You can't think about them. You have your own disaster to manage. Roman cavalry on the far bank begins moving. They're not attacking, they're retreating. The sight of elephants, even waterborne ones, is breaking their nerve. Good. You need any advantage you can get. The raft bumps against the far bank, and you've never felt such relief. Down, you command Surus, using the signal to dismount. Off, now. He hesitates one final heartbeat, then steps onto solid ground. His legs nearly buckle with relief. Yours do the same.
31 elephants cross successfully. 2 drown in the Rhone, including the one you watched panic. Its mahout survives, pulled out by cavalry. He sits on the bank afterward, wrapped in a blanket, staring at nothing. You know that look. That's the look of someone who's lost family. The Roman cavalry regroups farther back, watching. Hannibal's forces consolidate on the north bank, and you get your first real look at the territory ahead. More mountains. Of course, more mountains. These make the Pyrenees look like practice hills. The Alps rise in the distance, white-capped, massive, impossible. That night around the fire, Carthallo confirms what everyone already suspects. "We're marching into those," he says, nodding toward the peaks. The other mahouts fall silent. An elephant can survive many things, but sustained cold? None of you have experience with that. African elephants evolved in heat. Your Syrian elephant, Surus, has slightly better cold tolerance. Syrian winters can be harsh, but nothing like alpine conditions. A Gallic guide, hired to show the safest passes, sits nearby. You ask him in broken Celtic about the mountains. He looks at you with something like pity. 9 days to cross, he says. If weather holds, if not, he shrugs. Month ago, a trading caravan tried. 300 men. 40 came down the other side. You do the math, silently. That's an 87% mortality rate. You have 31 elephants. If the same ratio applies, you stop calculating. It doesn't help. Hannibal addresses the army at sunset. His speech is translated into multiple languages for the diverse coalition. He promises glory, wealth, and the complete destruction of Rome. The infantry cheers. You notice he doesn't mention survival rates.
The march toward the Alps takes 11 days through increasingly hostile territory. The local Allobroges tribe watches from hilltops, debating whether to attack. Hannibal sends diplomats with gifts, gold, silver, captured Roman weapons. Some accept, others wait for opportunity. You're in the foothills now. The temperature drops noticeably each day. Mornings bring frost that crunches underfoot and makes the elephant's breath visible in clouds. You've requisitioned extra blankets for Surus, draping them over his back at night. The other mahouts do the same. The elephants hate them. Keep shaking them off. You keep replacing them. Surus's appetite diminishes. That's the first serious warning sign. Elephants are eating machines. They should consume food almost continuously. When they stop eating, something is very wrong. You try everything: fresh-cut branches, dried grain, even honey mixed with grain mash. He picks at it listlessly. The cold is sapping his energy just to maintain body temperature. The army veterinarian, a Greek named Sosilos, examines all the elephants. His diagnosis is blunt. They're built for African heat, not alpine cold. Their bodies burn food just to stay warm. They're slowly starving, even while eating. He looks at you with sympathy. The Syrian might do better than the Africans. Might. But don't expect miracles. That night you sleep pressed against Surus's belly, sharing body heat. He's like a living furnace, radiating warmth. But you can feel his ribs more prominently now. He's losing weight fast. All of them are. The Allobroges attack at dawn, when everyone is stiff and slow from cold. It's half-hearted, more probing than full assault. Hannibal's cavalry drives them off within an hour, but it delays the march another day. Every delay costs food, warmth, and elephant condition. The actual ascent into the Alps begins on what the Gallic guides call a good day, meaning it's not actively snowing. The temperature is below freezing. The path narrows to a rocky track that climbs steadily upward. You can see your breath. You can see Surus's breath in great billowing clouds. Within the first hour, the first elephant falls. Not from a cliff, from exhaustion. One of the smaller African elephants simply stops walking, sways, and collapses onto its side. The mahout screams for help. Veterinarians rush forward. They try everything: warming fires, forced feeding, even beating the elephant to make it stand. Nothing works. After 3 hours, Sozolos makes the call. They cut the elephant's throat to end its suffering. The meat is butchered and distributed to the army. The mahout sits nearby, face blank. 30 elephants remain. You've learned not to count them anymore, but you count anyway. The path becomes steeper. Surus struggles now where he wouldn't have before. His feet slip on icy rocks. He's breathing hard, too hard for the exertion level. His body is burning all its energy just staying warm. At rest stops, he stands with his head down, trunk nearly touching the ground, the posture of complete exhaustion. You share your own food rations with him. It's stupid. You need calories too. But watching him starve is unbearable. You chew bread and nuts, then feed them to him by hand, your saliva helping him digest. Other mahouts do the same. You're all getting thinner together. By evening, you've climbed perhaps 3 miles. The army camps on a slope so steep that sleeping requires wedging yourself against rocks. Surus can't lie down safely. The angle would make getting up impossible. He sleeps standing, locked knees holding his weight. You lean against his foreleg, wrapped in both your blanket and his, and shiver through the darkness. Day 3 in the Alps brings the first major snowfall. Not the gentle dusting you've seen before. Actual snow, heavy and continuous, reducing visibility to 20 feet. The column slows to a crawl, then stops entirely. The Gallic guides are arguing about the path. One route is shorter but steeper, another is longer but safer. Hannibal chooses shorter. Time is the enemy now, more than terrain. Surus walks through snow that reaches his knees. Each step requires pulling his leg free, then pushing forward, a grotesque, slow-motion march. The younger elephants follow in his tracks, using the channels he creates. At least you're still useful as a pathfinder. Midday, you reach a section where an avalanche has covered the path completely. The snowpack is 15 feet deep and packed hard as stone. The engineers say it'll take 2 days to cut through. Hannibal makes a decision that shocks everyone. He orders fires built directly on the snow. You watch in disbelief as soldiers pile wood and brush, then set it ablaze. The heat melts the snow, creating a channel. It works. Barely. The elephants cross the melted section, but the heat has made the underlying rock treacherous, wet and slippery. One elephant, a female named Astarte, loses her footing. She slides 10 feet down slope before her mahout regains control. Her left front foot is damaged, the toenails torn, bleeding into the snow. She'll be slower now. Another weakness in the herd. That night brings temperatures you didn't know existed. Your water freezes solid in its skin. Your piss freezes before it hits the ground. Surus's ears, those massive blood vessel-rich organs designed to radiate heat in Africa, are now liabilities. The tips are developing frostbite, black, dead tissue. Sociolos says they'll probably lose the ear tips eventually, but that's survivable, if you survive. Day 5. Another elephant dies. This time it's not from falling or exhaustion. It's from simple hypothermia. The mahout wakes to find his elephant lying on its side, frozen solid, eyes open and glazed. The elephant was an African named Melkart, only 7 years old. Too young. Everything here is too young to die like this. 29 elephants now. The number haunts you. The path leads along a ridgeline so narrow that the elephants walk in absolute single file, with cliff faces on both sides. One misstep means death, 1,000-foot fall into nothing. You lead Surus with your hand on his trunk, testing each step yourself before allowing him forward. Behind you, the other mahouts do the same. It takes 6 hours to cross a section that should take 45 minutes. Hannibal rides forward on horseback to inspect the elephant division. His horse skitters at being this close to the exhausted beasts. "How many are combat ready?" he asks Carthalo, the senior mahout. Carthalo looks at the general, then at the elephants, then back. "None, my lord." The silence that follows is terrible. Hannibal's entire strategy depends on elephants breaking Roman infantry formations. If they can't fight... But Hannibal just nods. "Keep them alive. We need them to simply arrive." He rides away. You're not sure if that's better or worse. You don't need to be combat ready, just alive. The bar has dropped so low it's underground. That afternoon brings a small mercy. The path descends slightly, not much, but enough that walking feels easier. Surus even raises his head slightly, ears moving forward. You take it as a victory. The other mahouts notice too. Whispered conversations suggest maybe the worst is behind you. You've crossed the summit. It's downhill from here. Then Carthalo points ahead and your heart sinks. Another summit. Higher than the first. The Gallic guides explain. There are 3 major passes. You've crossed 1. 2 remain. The second ascent breaks the army. Soldiers begin deserting in the night. Gallic mercenaries mostly, who know these mountains and know when a campaign has become a death march. Hannibal executes a few deserters publicly as examples, but it barely slows the exodus. You can't blame them. You'd desert too, if you weren't bound to Surus. The elephants are in catastrophic condition now. They're walking corpses, animated only by training and the mahout's constant urging. Surus's weight loss is visible, even through his thick skin. His hip bones protrude, his ribs are countable. His face has hollowed. He's burning muscle tissue for energy. His eyes have a dull, far-away look that terrifies you. That's the look of an elephant that's already dead, but doesn't know it yet. 3 more elephants die on the ascent. One simply sits down and refuses to get up. They leave it sitting there. No time for butchering. No energy for mercy killing. As you pass, hours later, it's still sitting, covered in snow, slowly freezing. 26 elephants remain. You reach the second summit during a whiteout snowstorm. The wind is so strong, you have to lean into it at a 45-degree angle to avoid being blown over. Surus stops walking. Just stops. You pull on his trunk, push against his leg, scream commands into the wind. Nothing. He stands with his eyes closed, swaying slightly. Carthalo appears through the snow. He's leading his elephant Achates, who's in even worse condition than Surus. "They're done," he shouts over the wind. "They can't process commands anymore. Their brains are shutting down from cold." He demonstrates. He slaps Achates' trunk hard, a gesture that should provoke an immediate reaction. The elephant barely flickers an eyelid. "See? They're conscious, but not thinking. Autopilot only." You realize with horror that Carthallo is right. Surus isn't really present anymore. He's somewhere else mentally, conserving energy, waiting to either recover or die. The descent from the second summit is worse than the climb. The path is covered in ice, not snow which provides traction, but pure ice, smooth and treacherous. Horses slide and fall. Soldiers move on hands and knees. The elephants, with their enormous weight, have even less control. It happens to an elephant named Hamilcar, 50 feet ahead of you in line. His feet slip on an icy section. He tries to correct, shifts his weight, and his rear legs go out from under him. 9,000 pounds sliding backward on ice makes a sound you'll never forget. A grinding, scraping, metallic screech as his body presses into the frozen path. His mahout jumps clear, just before Hamilcar slides over the edge. The elephant falls silently. No trumpet, no cry, just gone. You hear the impacts as his body hits outcrops on the way down. It takes 7 seconds before you hear the final crash. 7 seconds of falling. You do the math automatically. That's roughly 750 feet. Nothing survives that. 25 elephants. You're down to 25. The engineers start a new system. They chip steps into the ice with picks and hammers, creating rough stairways for the elephants. It slows progress to perhaps a quarter mile per day, but the alternative is watching more elephants slide to their deaths. Surus walks down the ice steps mechanically, each foot placement deliberate but devoid of thought. You guide him with hand pressure on his trunk, your own feet slipping constantly. At nightfall, you reach a relatively flat area, a miracle of terrain that allows actual camping. Hannibal orders all remaining livestock slaughtered for food. The elephants receive extra rations of meat and grain. It's too little too late, but Surus eats for the first time in days. The sight of him actually consuming food brings tears to your eyes. You don't bother hiding them. Everyone is crying now, from cold, exhaustion, or despair. The tears freeze on your cheeks. Day 9 in the Alps, the final descent. The Gallic guides say Italy is just 3 days away if you can reach the foothills. 3 days might as well be 3 years at this point, but it's still hope. Hope is a dangerous thing in the mountains. The temperature warms slightly as you lose elevation. This should be good news, but it creates a new nightmare. The snow melts during the day, then refreezes at night, creating ice patches hidden under thin snow layers. Elephants break through constantly, one leg plunging down while the others stay on the surface. Surus breaks through 4 times in one morning. Each time you have to help him extract his leg, pushing, pulling, digging snow away from around his trapped foot. It takes 20 minutes per incident. Your hands are destroyed, bleeding, frostbitten, covered in sores that won't heal in the cold. Another elephant falls during one of these incidents. The ice breaks and the elephant, a large African bull named Tanit, drops through into a snow-covered crevasse. The opening is only 3 feet wide, but he falls 15 feet before wedging in the crack. They can hear him down there, trumpeting in pain and terror. The crevasse is too narrow to extract him. After 3 hours of failed rescue attempts, Sosilos makes the decision. They pour oil down onto Tanit and drop a torch. You hear the screaming for 5 minutes until the smoke suffocates him. His mahout tries to throw himself into the crevasse. Other mahouts hold him back. 24 elephants. The number is meaningless now. You're all going to die up here. But then, mid-afternoon, something changes. The path levels out. Genuinely levels. Not the slight respite of a ridge, but actual flat ground. Trees appear. Not the stunted mountain shrubs, but real trees. Pine trees. The air smells different. Warmer. You're through. Behind you, the Alps rise like a white wall. Ahead, the path descends into green valleys. Italy. The first night in Italy, camping below the snow line, Surus lies down for the first time in 8 days. You watch him slowly fold his legs, lowering his massive body to the ground with a groan that sounds almost human. He stretches out fully on his side. He's still alive. Against every probability, your elephant is still alive. You inventory the survivors. 24 elephants descended from the Alps. You started with 37. 13 dead in 2 weeks. More than a third of the division lost to cold, falls and exhaustion. The mahouts gather that night and do something none of you have done since childhood. You weep. Not dignified tears, but broken, gasping sobs. You've spent 2 weeks watching elephants die. Your elephants, your family. Hannibal's army is similarly devastated. Of 90,000 infantry, approximately 50,000 survive. Of 12,000 cavalry, 6,000 remain. Nearly half the army dead in the mountains. But you're in Italy. You're actually in Italy, behind Rome's defenses, and they have no idea you're here. The next morning brings the first real warmth you felt in weeks. Surus stands stiffly, favoring his left rear leg, the one he injured on the raft, which hasn't fully healed. All the elephants move like arthritic old men, stiff and careful. Sosilos examines each one. His report to Hannibal is grim. They need a month of rest, warm conditions, and unlimited food. They won't be battle-ready for weeks. Hannibal doesn't have weeks. Roman legions are mobilizing. You overhear his officers planning. They'll rest 3 days, then march toward the first Roman army. 3 days for elephants who need 30. But when has what elephants need ever mattered to generals? You spend those 3 days doing nothing but caring for Surus. You massage his legs, clean his feet of ice damage, treat his frostbitten ear tips, hand feed him every calorie you can scrounge. He's so weak he can barely stand for more than a few hours. But he's eating again. That's something. 3 days pass too quickly. On the 4th morning, horns sound before dawn. The army mobilizes for its first battle on Italian soil. The enemy, a Roman consular army under Publius Cornelius Scipio, approximately 40,000 legionaries camped near the Ticinus River. Rome knows you're here now. Time for diplomacy is over. Hannibal calls the mahouts to his command tent. 24 of you stand before the general. Men from Numidia, Carthage, Iberia, and Syria, united only by your elephants. Hannibal looks at each of you in turn. I know they're not ready, he says quietly. I know what the mountains cost, but Rome expects us to be weak. Rome thinks we have no elephants left, or that those we have are useless. We'll prove them wrong. The strategy is simple. The elephants will anchor the center of the Carthaginian line. When Roman cavalry charges, the elephants advance, break the charge through sheer terror, then withdraw before the Romans can adapt. You're not being used for sustained combat, just shock and psychological warfare. Even wounded elephants can scare Roman horses. You prepare Surus carefully. His combat gear, the howdah platform, the reinforced leather armor, the tusk blades, was abandoned in the Alps to save weight. Now you re-equip him with whatever survived. The howdah is gone, so you'll ride his neck directly. The armor has frozen and thawed so many times it's brittle, but it's better than nothing. The tusk blades are secured with rope that won't hold in serious combat, but might last long enough. As you work, Carthalo approaches. His elephant, Achates, looks even worse than Surus. Gaunt, scarred, one ear almost completely destroyed by frostbite. First battle, Carthalo says. We might die today. You nod. You might. But you didn't survive the Alps just to die quietly. The Battle of Ticinus begins with cavalry clashing on the flanks. You hear it before you see it. The thunder of horses, the shouting, the distinctive sound of metal on metal, but your focus is forward, where Roman cavalry advances toward the Carthaginian center, toward you. The elephants stand in a line across the field, 24 massive beasts with mahouts mounted, your position third from the right, not the center, but close enough. You can see the Roman cavalry clearly now, 3,000 horsemen in perfect formation, armor gleaming, lances leveled. They're magnificent. They're also about to meet elephants for the first time. Hannibal's signal comes, a red flag raised, then dropped. Forward, the mahout commanders shout. You press your heels to Surus's neck, the signal to advance. He moves forward reluctantly, still weak from the mountains. Around you, the other elephants do the same. 24 war elephants, advancing at a slow walk, doesn't sound impressive. But when you're facing them, it's biblical. The Roman cavalry sees you. Their perfect formation wobbles. Horses are prey animals. They have instincts that scream run when something larger approaches. The Romans try to maintain discipline. Some succeed, most don't. The first rank of horses simply refuses to charge. They rear, spin, buck. The riders are excellent horsemen. They maintain seats, but they can't make their mounts advance. The second rank tries to go around the first. They get within 50 yards of the elephants before their horses break. Just break. Roman cavalry, fleeing in panic from beasts they've never encountered. Surus trumpets, a weak sound compared to his prime, but still enormous. The Roman horses closest to him nearly flip over backward in terror. Then Surus stops. Just stops, mid-field, refusing to go farther. His strength is gone. Around you, half the other elephants do the same. The charge has become a standstill. The Roman cavalry breaks. Not an organized retreat, a rout. Thousands of horsemen fleeing in disorder, abandoning formation, some dropping weapons to ride faster. Hannibal's own cavalry exploits the chaos, charging into the fleeing Romans, cutting them down from behind. It's a complete victory for Carthage. The elephants barely had to fight. But Surus isn't celebrating. He's swaying where he stands, head low, breathing in great gasps. Around you, several other elephants have collapsed entirely. The exertion of even that brief advance has pushed them past their limits. Sosilos rushes forward on horseback, takes one look at the elephants, and begins shouting for water, food, and rest positions. You slide down from Surus's neck, land hard, your own legs barely working. You press your hand to his side, feeling his heart hammering. Too fast, dangerously fast. Stay with me, you whisper. You did it. You won. Just breathe. The battlefield aftermath is brutal. Roman wounded everywhere. Carthaginian soldiers looting corpses. Prisoners being herded together. You don't care about any of it. You focus on keeping Surus standing, because if he lies down now, in this condition, he might not get back up. Hannibal rides over personally. He dismounts, approaches Surus, places a hand on the elephant's trunk. "This one saved us today," he says loudly, for the surrounding soldiers to hear. "This elephant and his brothers broke Rome's cavalry with their mere presence. Remember this." It's propaganda. Good generalship is always propaganda, but you appreciate it anyway. That night, the camp celebrates victory. Hannibal has won his first battle on Italian soil against a consular army. But in the mahout section, there's no celebration. 4 more elephants die overnight from the exertion. 20 elephants remain. Just 20. The Carthaginian army moves south, pursuing broken Roman forces. Hannibal wants to fight another battle before Rome can properly organize its defenses. The elephants march, but calling it marching is generous. They shuffle forward at walking pace, stopping frequently for rest. You've gone from elite shock troops to the army's slowest, most fragile division. Surus develops an infection in his rear left foot. The old injury from the ice has never properly healed, and now it's inflamed, weeping pus. So Silos lances it, drains the infection, packs it with honey and herbs. Watch for fever, he warns. If the infection spreads to his blood, he doesn't finish, you know. Blood poisoning kills elephants within days. The next Roman army is larger. 4 full legions under both consuls, perhaps 80,000 men. Hannibal chooses the battlefield carefully. The Trebia River, flowing between steep banks, with your camp on the south side. He's setting a trap. The elephants are the bait. The plan: parade the elephants within sight of the Roman camp. Let Rome see you're still combat capable. Draw them into attacking across the river in winter conditions, when the water will be chest deep and freezing. Exhaust them before they reach your actual battle line. It's brilliant. It's also asking elephants who barely survived the Alps to bait a trap with their own bodies. The night before battle, you can't sleep. You're lying beside Surus in the cold, watching stars, when Carthalo approaches. His elephant, Achates, is dying. Everyone knows it, including Carthalo. The infection has spread through his system, and his breathing has that wet, rattling sound that means fluid in the lungs. I'm going to ride him tomorrow, Carthalo says quietly. One last time. Let him die doing what he was bred for. You want to argue. You want to say that elephants deserve better. But you're a mahout. You understand. He was magnificent, you say. It's all there is to say. The Battle of Trebia begins before dawn. Hannibal sends light cavalry across the river to harass the Roman camp, a deliberate provocation. The Romans respond exactly as predicted. They marshal their entire army and charge after the cavalry, pursuing them back across the Trebia. 80,000 Roman soldiers wading through chest-deep, ice-cold water in December. By the time they reach the south bank, they're hypothermic and exhausted. The elephants are positioned on both flanks of the Carthaginian line, 10 on each side, 20 total. Surus is on the right flank, 5th position. You've dressed his infected foot with extra padding, knowing it won't matter. When elephants charge, pain becomes irrelevant. The Romans form up, water streaming from their armor, teeth chattering. Their officers try to restore warmth and morale. Then Hannibal signals the advance. The elephants move forward, and even weak, even damaged, even dying, they're still terrifying. The Roman infantry holds. They're trained legionaries, not cavalry, better disciplined. But their formation loosens. Fear works even on trained soldiers. The elephants hit the Roman flanks like hammers. You're riding Surus into actual combat now. Not just a demonstration, but real fighting. He's too tired to charge properly, but his momentum alone scatters soldiers. His tusks, fitted with bronze blades, catch a Roman soldier across the chest. The man goes down. You don't look. You can't afford to see individuals, only threats and targets. Then Surus stumbles. The infected foot gives out on rough ground, and he nearly goes down. You grab his ears, pull yourself forward, shout encouragement. He catches himself, but the stumble has left him separated from the other elephants. Roman infantry recognizes the vulnerability. 20 legionaries close in with spears, targeting his legs. This is how elephants die in battle. Isolated and swarmed, brought down by dozens of small wounds until they bleed out or collapse from pain. You see it happening. Surus sees it too. He trumpets in rage and fear. Surus goes berserk. That's the only word for it. The approaching Romans trigger something primal in his exhausted brain. He stops responding to your commands entirely and just fights. He grabs a Roman soldier with his trunk, lifts him bodily, and slams him into the ground so hard you hear bones shatter. He tramples another, tusks another, spins with surprising speed, and scatters 6 more with his sheer mass. You're along for the ride now, clinging to his neck, no longer controlling him, just surviving. This is what war elephants do when cornered. They become chaos incarnate. Romans fall back, formation breaking. An elephant in full battle rage is unstoppable. Until it isn't. The spear comes from your left. A Roman soldier, braver than the others, thrusts up and catches Surus in the shoulder. It's not a killing blow, not immediately, but it's deep, and Surus. The sound an elephant makes when seriously injured is unlike any other, a trumpet note that goes through your bones. He spins, trying to find the attacker, and you nearly fall off. You grab his ear with both hands, drop your weapons, just hold on. Then the Carthaginian cavalry arrives. Hannibal has sprung the rest of his trap. Hidden cavalry in the riverside woods sweep into the Roman flanks. The Romans, already exhausted and cold, break. The entire army routs, fleeing back across the Trebia, leaving thousands dead on the field. It's another massive victory for Carthage, but you're not celebrating. Surus is wounded, the spear still embedded in his shoulder. Blood flows down his leg, mixing with the blood from his infected foot. You dismount shakily, approach his shoulder, assess the wound. It needs to come out, but removing a spear from an elephant requires equipment and help you don't have mid-battle. Sosilos finds you an hour later, still standing beside Surus, hand on the spear shaft, too afraid to pull it. "Let me," Sosilos says. He pulls. Surus. Gah! Again. The wound pours blood. Sosilos packs it with cloth and pressure. "He'll survive," he says, with more confidence than you feel. "Elephants are tough." Around you, mahouts count survivors. 18 elephants remain. Achates, Carthalos' elephant, died mid-battle, collapsed from infection and exhaustion combined. Carthalo is sitting 50 feet away, staring at nothing, covered in his elephant's blood. Winter settles over northern Italy. Hannibal establishes winter quarters in Cisalpine Gaul, resting his battered army. The elephants are quartered in whatever buildings can accommodate them: barns, warehouses, even commandeered Roman villas. Surus gets a barn with 3 other elephants. It's the best shelter he's had in months. The shoulder wound heals slowly. Daily, you clean it, apply fresh poultice, check for infection. The foot wound is worse. It never truly heals, just stabilizes into a chronic injury. Surus will limp for the rest of his life, however long that is. Sosilos is blunt. 2, maybe 3 more battles. Then the accumulated damage will kill him. "I'm sorry." You process this information numbly. You've known Surus for 8 years. He's more family than any blood relation. The idea of his death, inevitable, approaching, sits in your chest like a stone. Rome is rebuilding. News arrives of new consuls appointed, new armies raised. They'll come again in spring, and again, and again. Rome has endless manpower. Carthage doesn't. Hannibal is winning battles, but losing the war through attrition, including elephant attrition. During winter, 3 more elephants die from accumulated injuries and illness. 15 remain. The mahouts hold a ceremony, not Carthaginian or Roman or Numidian, but something older. You stand in a circle around a fire and each name the elephants you've lost. When your turn comes, you list them. Hannibal's elephant in the Pyrenees, Melkart on the first ascent, the elephant on the ridgeline, Hamilcar on the ice, Tanit in the crevasse, the 4 after Ticinus, Achates at Trebia. Your voice breaks on the last name. Carthelo puts a hand on your shoulder. That night, alone with Surus, you whisper a promise. I'll get you home. Somehow. When this is over, I'll take you back to Africa. Green grass and heat, and no more mountains. I swear it. Surus doesn't understand the words, but he understands the tone. His trunk reaches up and gently touches your face. Spring arrives, and with it, another Roman army. Consul Gaius Flaminius commands 25,000 men, marching to engage Hannibal. The Carthaginian response is characteristically bold. A trap at Lake Trasimene, a narrow valley where the Romans can be ambushed and surrounded. The elephants will block the retreat. 15 elephants march to battle. Surus moves stiffly but keeps pace. His shoulder has healed into a thick scar. His foot has stabilized, and he's regained considerable weight over winter. He's not the elephant he was before the Alps. None of them are. But he can still fight. The ambush is perfect. Romans march into the valley, and Hannibal's forces attack from 3 sides simultaneously. The elephants seal the 4th side, the only exit. Romans trapped against the lake, crushed between Carthaginian forces and water. It's not a battle so much as a massacre. But this time, the Romans adapt. They've fought elephants twice now. They know the tactics. Specially trained velites, light infantry with javelins, target the elephants specifically. They don't aim for killing blows. They aim for eyes, trunks, feet, pain and terror instead of death. Surus takes 3 javelins, 1 in his haunch, 2 in his side. None are fatal, but they hurt. He trumpets in pain, spins, tries to dislodge them. You pull the javelins out one by one, a brutal process that makes him scream. The wounds bleed, but aren't deep. He'll survive. But he's learning, as all war elephants eventually learn. Battle means pain. The fight ends with Roman army completely destroyed. 15,000 Romans dead or captured. Flaminius himself killed in combat. Rome has lost 3 consular armies in 6 months. Hannibal is untouchable, but the elephants are not. That night, 2 more die from accumulated wounds. Not from Trasimene specifically, but from everything. Their bodies simply give up. 13 elephants remain. Unlucky 13. Hannibal's army moves south through Italy, ravaging Roman territory. City after city refuses to surrender, trusting Rome to eventually defeat the invader. But Rome's strategy has changed. The new dictator, Fabius Maximus, refuses to fight. He shadows Hannibal's army, harasses supply lines, but won't commit to battle. It's brilliant and infuriating. Without battles, the elephants become a logistical burden. 13 elephants consuming 300 pounds of food each daily, requiring constant care, moving slowly for no tactical purpose. Officers begin suggesting they be killed for meat. Hannibal refuses, but you can see him calculating the same math you are. Keeping elephants alive costs resources better spent elsewhere. Surus develops another infection, this time in his damaged ear, where the frostbitten tissue has never healed properly. It swells, oozes, causes obvious pain. So Silos treats it, but warns, these chronic injuries accumulate. His body is losing the fight. One more serious wound might be the last. You're marching through Campania when the heat becomes oppressive. African heat, familiar and welcome after the Alpine nightmare. But Surus isn't adapting well. He's panting constantly, trunk dragging, stumbling on easy ground. Heat exhaustion, so Silos diagnoses. The elephant that survived freezing cold is now being killed by heat. The irony is vicious. That night, you cool him with water from a captured Roman aqueduct, pour bucket after bucket over his massive body. He stands quietly, eyes closed, just accepting the relief. You notice grey hairs on his trunk, elephants grey as they age. Surus is only 17 years old, Middle-aged for an elephant, not old, but he looks ancient. Around the camp, you overhear soldiers talking. Not disrespectfully, but practically. The elephants are dying naturally. Why waste resources on creatures with limited futures? Why not end it humanely and use the meat? It's logical. You hate them for being logical. August brings the Battle of Cannae, Rome's attempt to finally destroy Hannibal with overwhelming force. 86,000 Roman and allied soldiers, the largest army Rome has ever fielded. Hannibal has 50,000 men and 13 elephants. The smart money is on Rome, but Hannibal has a plan. He positions his army in a convex formation, stronger on the flanks than the center. As Romans push the center back, the flanks will wheel inward, surrounding them. The elephants are positioned centrally, not for combat effectiveness, but as visual intimidation and a rallying point. You're basically ornamental at this point. It stings, but it's honest. The battle begins at dawn. 86,000 Romans advance like a wave of steel and flesh. The Carthaginian center gives ground as planned. The Romans think they're winning. The flanks close like jaws. And suddenly, 86,000 Romans are trapped in a killing zone with no escape. What follows is the worst single-day loss in military history up to that point. The Romans are so densely packed, they can't lift their arms to fight. Carthaginians butcher them methodically. 50,000 Romans die in 6 hours. The Ophidius River runs red. Consul Lucius Aemilius Paulus is killed. It's Rome's worst nightmare made real. The elephants barely participate. Surus stands in formation, with you mounted, watching the slaughter from 100 yards away. Romans occasionally break through toward the elephants, and you repel them half-heartedly. This isn't combat, it's execution. You feel sick watching it. War is one thing, this is something else. By evening, the field is carpeted with corpses. 50,000 men. The elephants walk through them carefully on the way back to camp, stepping over bodies. Surus moves with his head turning constantly, trunk curled tight against his chest, trumpeting softly in distress. Elephants mourn death, even enemy death. The smell of blood and opened bowels is overwhelming. That night you can't eat. None of the mahouts can. Victory tastes like ash when you're standing in a lake of blood. After Cannae, Rome should surrender. Any rational power would. But Rome isn't rational. They're Roman. They refuse peace negotiations, raise new armies, continue the war. It becomes clear, this war won't end until one side is completely destroyed, and Carthage is the smaller side. The next year brings fewer battles, more maneuvering. Fabius's strategy of avoidance becomes Rome's default. Hannibal marches, Rome shadows. Cities are besieged, none surrender. The war grinds on. And the elephants keep dying. Not in battle, from attrition. Chronic injuries become infections. Infections become fevers. Fevers become death. You lose elephants monthly now. 11 elephants. 9. 7. Each death is mourned by the mahouts, but barely noticed by the army. The elephants have become an afterthought, a relic of the first victories, no longer relevant to current strategy. Surus survives longer than most. His Syrian heritage gives him advantages the Africans lack. Better cold tolerance that somehow translates to general hardiness. But he's declining. His weight drops again. His infected foot never heals, bleeding slightly every day. His damaged ear has lost half its flesh to necrosis. He's deaf on that side now. You're 25 years old and feel 50. 8 years as a mahout, 7 of them with Surus. Everything you know how to do centers on keeping this one elephant alive. And you're failing. He's dying slowly, and there's nothing you can do but watch. In 215 BCE, 3 years after arriving in Italy, the elephant count drops to 4. 4 elephants from 37. You, Carthalo, who survived but lost Achates, and 2 other mahouts. You're the last of a dying tradition. Within the year, you know, there will be no war elephants left in Italy. Just memories and 4 grieving mahouts. One evening, Carthelo asks you, when Surus dies, what will you do? You don't have an answer. Your entire identity is wrapped around being Surus's Mahout. Without him, who are you? 214 BCE. Surus is 18 years old and dying. There's no single catastrophic injury, just the accumulation of damage from 5 years of warfare. His body is shutting down system by system. He eats less each day. His breathing becomes labored. He spends most of his time lying down, unable to maintain standing. Sosilos examines him one final time. His heart is failing, the veterinarian says gently. Maybe a month, maybe less. I can end it now if you want, painlessly. You shake your head violently. Not yet. You need more time. Time for what? You don't know, but not yet. The other 3 elephants have already died. You're the last Mahout with a living elephant. The other Mahouts have been reassigned. Carthelo is now a cavalry scout, using skills that transfer. You're still technically a Mahout, even though your job consists entirely of waiting for Surus to die. Hannibal summons you. The general looks older too. The years in Italy have aged everyone. I remember when we started, he says, looking at Surus. 37 elephants. I thought they'd win the war for me. I was wrong. The elephants didn't win the war, but they got us here. That matters. He pauses. When he dies, you're released from service, with honors and full pay. You've earned it. It's kind. It's also a death sentence for Surus. Hannibal is acknowledging there's no military purpose in keeping him alive. After this conversation, the army will stop providing food rations for an elephant. You'll be on your own. That night, you sleep beside Surus like always. His breathing is wet and rattling. Each breath sounds like it might be the last. You press your face against his side, and finally, after years of control, you cry. Deep, wrenching sobs that shake your whole body. Surus's trunk reaches back weakly and touches your head. Even dying, he tries to comfort you. I'm sorry, you whisper. I'm so sorry. I promised I'd get you home. I lied. Surus dies 3 weeks later, on a morning when the sky is clear and the air smells of Italian summer flowers. You're beside him when it happens. His breathing becomes shallower, then stops. His eyes stay open. Elephants don't close their eyes in death. You close them manually, a final service. The army doesn't have resources to move an elephant corpse. Sosilos suggests burning him, which would take days and enormous amounts of wood. You refuse. You want him buried, whole, with dignity. Carthelo and the other former Mahouts help you dig. It takes 3 days to excavate a pit large enough. On the 4th day, you use horses and ropes to roll Surus's body into the grave. Before you cover him, you place items in the grave. His broken tusk blade, his worn harness, a piece of cloth you've carried from Numidia. Small things, things that mean something. Carthelo adds a Carthaginian coin, payment for the afterlife, the way soldiers are buried. You add salt from the Carthaginian homeland, closing the circle. Hannibal attends the burial. So does most of the Carthaginian command staff. It's strange. This funeral for an elephant gets more ceremony than most soldiers receive. But Surus was there at the beginning. He survived the Alps when most didn't. He represented something larger than himself. Hope, maybe, or endurance. The idea that impossible things could be survived. You fill the grave. It takes another day. When finished, you place a marker, a large stone with Surus's name carved in Punic script. Below his name, you carve the mountain symbol, 3 peaks. Everyone who sees it will know, this elephant crossed the Alps. That night, you leave camp. You've been dismissed from service with honors. You have coin, gear, and freedom. You walk south toward the coast, intending to find a ship to Africa, to home. But you stop after a mile, look back at the camp, at the grave, at the last 5 years of your life. You can't leave. Not yet. You return to the army. Not as a mahout, that job doesn't exist anymore, but as a scout. Your knowledge of elephants is useless now, but you can track, navigate, survive. Carthalo trains you in cavalry tactics. You're competent. Not brilliant, but competent. It's something to do. It keeps you from thinking. The war continues. Years blur together. Hannibal wins battles, takes cities, dominates southern Italy, but can't break Rome's will. Rome raises army after army. Carthage sends no reinforcements. The soldiers grow older, more cynical. Victory seems less likely each year. You're 30 years old when Rome invades Africa, forcing Carthage to recall Hannibal. The army, now reduced to a fraction of its original size, marches to the coast for evacuation. You walk through Campania one last time, past fields you've crossed dozens of times, past the site of Cannae, where 50,000 Romans died. The landscape is empty now. War moved elsewhere. On impulse, you detour to Cyrus's grave. It's been years, and you expect the marker to be gone, the grave overgrown. But it's not. Someone, local Italians maybe, or passing soldiers, has maintained it. The stone marker stands clean, flowers placed recently. Elephants made an impression even on enemies. You kneel at the grave, hand on the stone. I'm going home, you tell Cyrus, or his memory, or yourself. We're leaving Italy. I'm sorry I couldn't bring you with me. You sit there for an hour, remembering. The stable in New Carthage, the Pyrenees, the Alps, the battles. 8 years compressed into memories that feel both vivid and impossibly distant. When you stand, you feel lighter somehow. Not happy. The grief doesn't fade, but released. You kept your promise as well as you could. You survived. Cyrus got you through the Alps. And maybe that's enough. The evacuation to Africa is chaotic but uneventful. You board a Carthaginian transport ship in a crowd of veterans, all returning to defend the homeland. The ship smells of salt, sweat, and old wood. You stand at the rail as Italy recedes, watching the coastline disappear. 15 years. You were a boy when you left Numidia. You're returning a man, carrying more scars than should fit in one lifetime. Africa looks the same and completely different. The heat hits like a physical force, familiar and welcome. The landscape is the red-brown of home, but Carthage itself is desperate. Rome's invasion force is near, and the city is preparing for siege. The population is terrified. They see Hannibal's returning army as salvation. You're assigned to a veterans unit, men who served the entire Italian campaign. Most are in their 30s and 40s, worn down by years of war. You fit right in. The unit's job is straightforward. Hold defensive positions, train new recruits, wait for the inevitable battle with the Roman general Scipio. That battle comes at Zama in 202 BCE. Both sides field massive armies for the final confrontation. Scipio commands 40,000 Romans and their allies. Hannibal has 45,000 Carthaginians, including many inexperienced recruits. The army needs an advantage, something to break Roman formations. Hannibal's officers suggest war elephants. Carthage still has elephants, not many, but 80 juveniles hastily trained for war. Young elephants, barely combat ready, with nervous mahouts who've never fought a battle. You watch them gather before battle and feel sick. They're sending children to fight. Elephant children and human children. Neither ready, both going to die. An officer recognizes you. You're the mahout from Italy, the one who crossed the Alps. You nod. We need experienced handlers. These boys don't know what they're doing. He's asking you to return to your old job, to ride elephants into combat one more time. You look at the young elephants, the terrified mahouts, and something in you breaks open. Or maybe heals. You're not sure. No, you say. I'm done. The officer argues. You walk away. The Battle of Zama is a disaster. You watch from the infantry reserves, positioned far from the elephant division. Scipio has learned every lesson from fighting Hannibal. When the 80 elephants charge, the Roman lines simply open, corridors created by training and discipline, allowing the elephants to run through harmlessly. Those elephants that don't pass through the gaps are hit by coordinated javelin volleys, driving them back into Carthaginian lines. The elephants panic, turn, rampage through their own army. Chaos. From your position, you can see it unfold with horrible clarity. Young elephants, poorly trained, breaking under pressure. Mahouts losing control, falling, being trampled. The elephants become weapons against Carthage instead of for it. Within an hour, the elephant division is destroyed, scattered, killed, or fled from the field. The advantage Hannibal needed becomes the thing that defeats him. The infantry battle that follows is brutal and decisive. Roman cavalry encircles the Carthaginian flanks, exactly as Hannibal did at Cannae. The irony is bitter. By afternoon, Carthage's army is broken, 20,000 dead, thousands more captured. Hannibal survives and escapes, but his military career is over. Carthage is over. You survive too when the Romans sweep the field for prisoners. You throw down your weapons and surrender. Survival at this point is habit. You're processed with thousands of other prisoners, names recorded, valuables confiscated, then released. Rome doesn't need more prisoners. They need broken people to go home and tell Carthage the war is lost. Walking back to Carthage through the gathering dusk, you pass the battlefield. The elephants who died lie among the human corpses. Young animals who never had a chance. One is still alive, chest heaving, legs broken. There's no one to end its suffering. You approach carefully, kneel beside it, place your hand on its trunk. It calms slightly. You stay until it dies. It takes 20 minutes. You're crying again, for the first time since Surus. Not for this elephant specifically, for all of them. Carthage surrenders. The peace terms are brutal. Massive indemnity payments, fleet destruction, territorial losses, and the execution of war criminals. Hannibal flees into exile to avoid this. The Second Punic War is over. Rome wins. Carthage survives, barely, as a client state. You return to Numidia, to the region you left 18 years ago. Your village is still there, smaller and poorer, but recognizable. No one remembers you. You were 12 when you were sold, just another boy. Your family is dead or scattered. There's nothing here for you, but there's nothing anywhere else either. You purchase a small piece of land with your military pay, not prime farmland, you can't afford that, but rocky ground near the hills where wild elephants sometimes pass. You build a modest house. You plant olive trees and keep goats. You live alone. Neighbors consider you strange but harmless, the war veteran who talks to himself and sometimes stands staring at nothing for hours. At night, you dream of elephants, sometimes good dreams. Surus, healthy and young, walking through green African grass. Sometimes nightmares, the Alps, the ice, the screaming, the dying. You wake confused about which memories are real. After 17 years of living with elephants, their absence is a physical ache. One evening, you hear trumpeting in the hills. Wild elephants, passing through on ancient migration routes. You walk out to watch them, a small herd, perhaps 20 animals. They're not like war elephants. They're cautious, communal, peaceful. Mothers with calves, adolescents playing, the life Surus should have had. You watch until they disappear into the dusk. Then you return to your house, make dinner, and sit alone. It's quiet. It's safe. It's deeply, achingly lonely. But you survived. Against every probability, through the Pyrenees and the Alps, and 15 years of warfare, you survived. That has to mean something. You're just not sure what. Years pass. You age into your 40s, then 50s. The world changes around you. Rome becomes the dominant Mediterranean power. Carthage is eventually destroyed completely in a third war, burned, salted, erased from existence. The former empire becomes a memory. Hannibal dies in exile, taking poison rather than surrender to Rome. The veterans scatter, die, are forgotten. The story of the war becomes legend, details distorted by time. But you remain, farming your rocky land, living quietly, bothering no one. Local children sometimes ask about the scars on your hands, the way you limp in cold weather. You tell them you were a soldier once. If they press for details, you talk about Italy, about battles, about generals. You never mention elephants. That part is private, sacred, not for casual conversation. One year, a Roman scholar arrives in the region, collecting stories for a history he's writing about the Punic Wars. Someone directs him to you, the old veteran who served under Hannibal. He arrives with papyrus, ink, and questions. Tell me about the war, he requests, particularly about crossing the Alps with elephants. How many did you lose? How did they manage the cold? What happened to them? You look at this young Roman, earnest and curious, seeking data for his history. You could tell him everything. The truth of what happened, the suffering, the dying, the fact that those magnificent creatures were used and discarded by powers that valued them only as weapons. You could tell him about Surus, about the 13 lost elephants, about Carthalo and the other mahouts, and the weight of watching animals die for human wars. Instead you say, I don't remember much. It was a long time ago. The elephants, they didn't survive well. Most died in the mountains or shortly after. That's all I know. The scholar writes it down, thanks you politely, and leaves. Your truth dies with you. History will record numbers and tactics and battles. It won't record the elephant who touched your face with his trunk, or the promise you made that you couldn't keep. You die in your sleep at 67, alone in your house. Neighbors find you 3 days later when your goats start complaining about missed feedings. They bury you in the local cemetery, without fanfare. You have no family, no wealth, no legacy. Just a small farm that's sold to cover debts, and a gravestone that says, "Here lies a soldier of Carthage." But on that final night, in your last dreams, you're young again. You're 23, standing beside Surus in Italian sunshine. He's healthy, no scars, no injuries, no chronic pain. His coat gleams, his eyes are bright. His trunk reaches toward you playfully. You laugh, a sound you haven't made in decades. Where were you? You ask him in Numidian. I've been waiting so long. His trunk touches your face, gentle and familiar. You understand what he's communicating, the way you always did. That he's been here all along. That the bond between mahout and elephant isn't broken by death. that every moment you remembered him. He was remembering you. Together, you walk into green grass under a warm sun. Behind you, the mountains disappear. The wars fade. The suffering recedes. What remains is simple. An elephant and his human, finally going home. The end.